As health officials in Nzoia and West Pokot counties are on high alert over a suspected case of the Marburg virus. This comes after Ugandan citizens suspected to have contracted the highly contagious Marburg fever visited a herbalist, Ms. Frida Etiang, at Boy Village Kaisagat location in Kwanza constituency to seek medication. The herbalist is suspected to have infected her with the virus and is under medical observation even after her samples tested negative for both Ebola and Marburg. Marburg fever incubation period is just 21 days, like the deadly Ebola virus. Me live from our city center studio is Peterson Washira, clinical officer who led Kenya's team of health workers in responding to the Ebola outbreak in Sierra Leone. Peterson, good morning. You have an experience in dealing with these contagious viruses. Do you think Kenya is ready for any of them, and more so the Marburg virus?
Good morning, Michelle, and thanks for having me. Michelle?
Yes, Peterson, go ahead. You've had quite a lot of experience with contagious diseases. Do you think Kenya has the capacity to handle them, and especially this particular Marburg virus, which is quite new?
Yeah, you understand that Marburg virus disease is similar to Ebola virus disease. Mm-hmm. And Kenya was able to send about 170 health workers to the West African countries when you were having the Ebola outbreak. So for now, I've been in contact with those on the ground, and I know one of us has been following up, even on the case of the herbalist who was treating a Marburg patient from Uganda. Mm-hmm. And what I can say with certainty is that we have the capacity, but the question is, are we mobilizing our resources so that we can be able to cater for an outbreak if it comes?
All right, and of course, Peterson, having had experience with during the Ebola outbreak or the Ebola scare, that was quite alarmist in the country. You're comparing this to the Ebola virus. Has Kenya learned from that Ebola scare, and what are we doing wrong or right to avert a similar outbreak?
What I would say is, from what I've noted, as I've said, I've been in contact with my people who are in Nzoia, and actually Nzoia, because it's only one of us who is in Nzoia, and now she's the expert who is helping others even in West Pokot. And the interventions that I'm told that are in place, I think they are quite adequate. But the problem they're having is the human resource. You realize that when it comes to Marburg or Ebola viruses, and when they cause now the Marburg viral disease or the Ebola viral disease, which come from the same family, these patients are going to present the same. And when we are talking about the intervention, we have a multi-pronged, a multidisciplinary intervention system that combines several interventions, from the case management, where you are going to treat these patients probably in the Marburg treatment centers. You need all the protective clothing and equipment that are needed. You also need to have a very strong and intense community mobilization and health education, which I'm told that on the ground it's happening, though I think that it's not quite effective because we're only doing it on the border counties, and we are forgetting that there are quite a number of Ugandans who are using our airport in Nairobi, and so it should be scaled probably to the countrywide level. Then we have the infectious prevention, and also we have the epidemiology and surveillance, so that you can be able to get the contact cases, you can be able to actively survey the population so that you can be able to pick these cases. What I want to emphasize is, I think the most effective of those, though all of them are effective and they must be in place. At a stage where we are at the prevention stage, what we need most is community mobilization, community education. because you realize that Marburg is quite a highly contagious viral disease. And if you look at our behavior as Kenyans, we like greeting each other. We like hugging and probably the body contacts, because it's spread through the fluids, especially on body contacts, probably through the mucous membranes. And if you are not going to have effective health education, once we get one case, then the outbreak is going to spread very fast.
All right. And Peterson, I mean, speaking of community mobilization and health education, how has the government facilitated clinical officers like yourselves in averting this outbreak, and perhaps even in civic education? What causes the Marburg virus?
So the Marburg virus is caused by a virus that is called Marburg, as you have said, which was first discovered in Germany. It has an incubation period of between 2 and 21 days, just like Ebola virus. And the symptoms that you are going to get is usually at the start, you get these high fevers and what we call constitutional symptoms. That is headache, muscle aches, muscle pains, sweating and such, and probably malaise, where you feel like you don't have energy. And then this is going to be followed by the wet symptoms. And the wet symptoms will be now the diarrhea, vomiting, sweating profusely. And usually, you know, in the past it was called Marburg hemorrhagic fever because of the hemorrhage that usually accompanies it. But these days now we are not calling it hemorrhagic fever, because we have seen that there are many cases, even in Ebola, that will present even to the extent of fatalities without getting to the extent of the bleeding. So after you get the wet symptoms, usually later you may or may not get the hemorrhages, probably from the puncture sites, from the orifices, and usually when you get to that extent, usually the case is usually fatal. It has a case fatality of 50%, meaning if 1,000 in the population were infected, probably 50% of them might die from it. Now you asked what have we learned as a country from the Ebola epidemic that happened in West Africa. I want to say that as a country, to some extent, we need to prioritize issues. Because you remember, like, I led a team of 170 health workers to West Africa. About 90 of them, they were not employed in the public sector. When we came back, we gave a report, and which we had even given to the highest office, to the president, and we recommended that because we know Marburg, Ebola, and other contagious diseases, even cholera, because you realize that Ebola, Marburg, and cholera will kill your patient in the same way, through the wet symptoms, diarrhea, vomiting, profuse sweating, then you have hypovolemic shock, and then they are going to die. So we recommended that we actually needed to form our own response team so that we can have a human resource, and here we have a human resource of 170 health workers from several disciplines, who actually forms the whole team with combined interventions, so that we even gave them a report which had recommendations that we can have this team employed at the national level, so that they can be sent to the counties whenever we have these cases for capacity building. Because if you look at the schedule on the devolution, it says that the national government still has the mandate to capacity build counties. So that even in the cases of cholera, I believe if we utilized the human resource that we sent to West Africa well, cholera could not have killed the people that it has been able to kill. A death from cholera, a death from Marburg, with the expertise that this country has, just because the expertise has been ignored, is one too many.
All right, Peterson, and what then is the government and health officials, what are they doing now to avert further spread of this possible Marburg virus in the country?
So what is happening, Like I said, the case of a herbalist who was treating a Ugandan who had contracted the virus and came to seek medical attention in Kenya is being followed up. One of us, clinical officer named Rahab Wanjiku, is following the herbalist, and I'm informed that so far, because she may be in incubation period, we don't know if she contracted, she has not shown any symptoms. And even the test that was done at Kemri came back negative. But we cannot write off the case because we are not through with the incubation period. I'm also informed that there is robust health education and community mobilization, but this is happening especially in Nzoia and West Pokot border. But what I'm saying is we need to scale it up. What if we get a case presenting in Nairobi and then it's going to spread without our knowledge? By the time we are going to get this case, if we do not do enough health education through the media and through other modalities, then by the time we'll be realizing this, the case will have presented to a nurse, a clinic officer, a doctor in the hospital, and probably we'll also be talking about health officers being infected.
All right, Peterson, and even as the investigations continue as to ascertaining whether this was Marburg or not, what can the everyday person do in day-to-day life to possibly prevent this Marburg disease?
I think what we need to do, first of all, we must realize that we don't have a confirmed case in Kenya. But then we must be also on high alert because we have said that there is no treatment that has been. Actually, there is no medication for Marburg that has been confirmed to be effective as per now, though research is ongoing. The treatment is usually based on the symptomatic treatment and actually rehydration, because we said that one dies from the hypovolemic shock. That is, you lose a lot of fluid in your body and then you go into shock and die. So what Kenyans, a normal Kenyan should be able to do is first, if you have these symptoms, that is, we said high fevers, there is the constitutional symptoms like the muscle aches, the extreme malaise, you have diarrhea and vomiting, you should present to a health facility as early as possible. Because you realize with these conditions, the earlier you seek health services, the better for you and the better for your survival. So they need to look out for these symptoms. They also need to look out for people in the society who may be having these symptoms so that they can be able to advise them accordingly, and if not to advise them accordingly, to report to the next health officer who is nearest to them, be it in a health facility or probably health public officers in the community.
All right, many thanks, Peterson Washira, clinical officer, joining us live from our city center studios. Peterson led a team of about 170 medical officers to West Africa to combat the Ebola scare in West Africa.